Hi there, it's Monday the 20th of April 2020 and I hope you enjoyed our online service yesterday. This week we are beginning a new series of podcasts under the title Love Stories. And I wonder if you're old enough to remember in 1970 a film that came out that went on to become a classic in the cinema, which was entitled, of course, Love Story. Do you remember who the two stars were? Ali MacGraw and Ryan O'Neill. In the Bible, there's many different love stories, and we're going to look at 5 different love stories found in the Gospels. And the first one is found in John, chapter 8, verses 1 to 11. It's a well-known story, but just in case you haven't read it or are not familiar with it, I'll just go over what happened. It begins with a woman who was caught red-handed in the act of adultery. And she was caught by the religious leaders and Pharisees, and they brought the woman to Jesus. Now, they couldn't care less about the woman. They just wanted to use her to try and trap Jesus, to try and expose him as the fraud that they thought he was. Now, we don't know what happened to the man, of course, because he would also have been involved, but he was nowhere to be seen. They were just, as I say, using the woman as a pawn. So they brought her to Jesus and they said, Jesus, this woman was caught in adultery. And as it says in the law, which you pertain to uphold, the law given by Moses, that any woman caught in this way would be liable to be stoned to death. So what do you say, Jesus? They knew, of course, that Jesus was very different to their teachers. He wasn't somebody without a heart. He wasn't uncaring or unfeeling or unsympathetic. He was somebody who loved people. He was somebody who cared for people. He was somebody who looked after people and often took the side of the underdog. And they were hoping that Jesus would do the same for this woman, and in so doing break the law by not stoning her, and so they would be able to expose him and be able to ridicule him and say that he was a false teacher. And what did Jesus do? Well, Jesus, of course, was too clever for them. And he bent down and he started to write on the ground. And he wrote in the dust. Now, we don't know what he wrote, but whatever he wrote, it certainly spoke to the people. Because one by one, with the oldest first, they all started to disappear. Even the Pharisees and the teachers eventually disappeared. It's quite possible that Jesus was writing maybe some of the other commands, some of the commands to honour God, the commands not to lie or not to cheat or not to steal. And perhaps these people who were feeling quite self-righteous that they'd caught this woman who was caught in adultery, perhaps they thought, oh, well, we've never done that. But then when Jesus perhaps exposed them and showed them that there were many other laws that were being broken, then perhaps that spoke into their hearts and they realised that actually they were also guilty. And of course Jesus said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone at this woman. And nobody could. So they all left, and they left the woman alone, and they left Jesus with the woman. And Jesus stands up and he speaks to the woman, and he says, woman, where are those people that were going to condemn you? She says, they're gone, there's no one left. And Jesus says, well, neither do I condemn you. So go and leave your life with sin. That word condemn is the Greek word katakrino, and it's made up of 2 Greek words, kata and krino. Kata meaning down and krino meaning to judge. It's like to hand a judgment down to somebody. It's to pronounce somebody as guilty there and then. And what's interesting is that verb, the tense of the verb is in the Greek it's the present indicative tense, which means right now. In other words, Jesus is saying to the woman, right now, I am not condemning you. He's not condoning her sin because he tells her to leave a life of sin. He's not saying it's okay what she did. But Jesus is saying to the women, right now, I am not condemning you like these other people were. Jesus was offering her not condemnation but love. He was offering her forgiveness. He was offering her a way out and the opportunity to live a new life. Right now, Jesus says to each one of us, I'm not condemning you. I am loving you, I am forgiving you, and I am offering you a new way of life. So this love story went from forbidden love, the woman being in adultery, to experiencing no love and rejection from the Pharisees, to experiencing forgiving love from Jesus. That's a beautiful love story in my book. Speak to you again tomorrow.